I've got family. Where everyone knows where I'm from.
Oh yeah. This is what I was. Yeah, okay. This is what I was thinking of.
We know that I'm from an middle class family, and I'm from where I'm from. So you can probably imagine the politics of my family, for the most part. Really, everybody except
imagine them, and then they're worse than you imagined. Really?
Yeah,
that's basically how
worse than you imagined.
That's what I get out of it.
So I was having a conversation with some family members recently, and this is not excluding the one family member I've talked about before, who's a conservative, who actually is through marriage. But this is a different side of the family, my close kin, my blood relatives, and we were having a meal, and these two female relatives of mine were signaling back and forth about politics, and I didn't try to argue with them. It's silly, but I did think, let me just see if I can clarify some issues here. And they started talking about how awful and crazy it was that Ted Cruz went out hunting and put on like the camo face paint and all this LARPy stuff when he went out hunting with the Duck Dynasty people. Now that is a total photo op, whatever. Whatever your thoughts on Cruz, we're concentrating on this specific context here, where he's out hunting with some white redneck guys with beards, and it's not even maybe they're actually middle class and everybody's LARPing in this situation, right? They're all LARPing, but the image they're putting on specific, working class, Southern and Midwestern white social signifiers, right? Redneck, essentially. What is universally cast as redneck, sort of middle America white social signifiers. And they're doing this for political purposes, right? That's obvious, but that doesn't matter because they were triggering to my family based on the fact that they were embracing these social signifiers. And I basically just brought that up. I was like, well, okay, what is wrong with Ted Cruz going out hunting and wearing face paint and doing all this LARPy stuff? Like, what is actually wrong with it? And they couldn't actually answer that question because it was self-evident to them.
Right.
My mother couldn't answer it. Oh, sorry, shit. I guess that doesn't matter because I guess people figure that anyway, right?
Yeah, we know. I mean, you are born of woman, so
right. Okay,
it's okay.
The other relative that I was talking to had no problem immediately saying it's insane, it's totally crazy, it's disgusting, it's horrible, I hate it. And I was saying, like, none of these are rational objections.
Yeah, they can't articulate why.
Right. They can't tell you. And it's the reason why is because it triggers something in their lizard brain that they hate, right? That's why. It triggers sort of amygdala or whatever. I'm not a neuroscientist, whatever. Something deep in her gets triggered. Biological, possibly.
It's definitely a moral reaction thing.
It's a disgust reaction.
I mean, if you read the book The Righteous Mind by Jonathan Haidt.
So that's just what I was thinking. Right.
Exactly.
We've done whole shows on the book.
Yeah. That's exactly what it is.
Yeah, and I knew this, so I was sort of playing off this, and I actually provoked this female relative of mine into, and I basically said, okay, so you hate, like, they're not actually hurting anybody, right? I mean, unless you have animal rights sympathies, which this person doesn't. So I was like, they're not actually hurting anybody. They're going out for fun. They're having fun. They're putting on face paint. They're going out shooting, whatever. It's cool. It's fun. It's LARPy, but whatever. They're not hurting anyone. And she couldn't get past this just massive. And she actually, I got her to the point where she was saying, like, waving her hand in the air and saying, "I am proud of being an urban elitist and hating these dumb, low-class rednecks and their guns." And I was like, wow. Like, wow.
It's fun.
So it was like, and that was kind of what I wanted to do. But then when I did it, I felt sad because I was like, oh, this is real. So
it's not a meme. It is nice. It's nice to know that it's all projection on their part, though. Every time they talk about,
it's good to know that there's no rational. I mean, we knew that there's no rational.
Oh yeah, we knew that. Right? It's good to have confirmation now and then to share it with the Goyim on the Daily Show here, because I think it's very convenient and nice to see that every time they tell us that they use the Holocaust or whatever as the chastity belt, as you like to say, we can't go forward with our ideas, and because the natural conclusion of our ideas is a nuda Shoah, and it's basically because where they're coming from, that's how they feel about these people.
Well, this is actually something that's been said before. Like, maybe they actually literally like they have to this is, I'm not convinced of this, but I've heard this argument before that it's kind of a psychoanalyzing thing, which I'm always a little bit skeptical of, but the idea that like they project they must believe in equality, because to them the conclusion of inequality is a Shoah. Like it has to be. There's no other options. Like, oh my God, black people are actually just have lower IQs.
Right.
Okay, well, there's no choice but ovens, right?
Yeah,
like
exactly.
No, I'm not. I mean,
no, it's just. I gotcha.
I don't know if that's real or not. I mean, I've seen that. It's possible that that's sort of a deep thing where they're like, but I don't know. I don't know. I think there's a lot of things involved with it, and at the end of the day, often I come to the conclusion they've just been fucking brainwashed. Well, I don't know how. I mean, or it's like. It's such a core part of their identity, and I realize this in this conversation. I knew this before, but it's when it slaps you in the face. Like every single ideal that this person pretends to believe in, like equality and open-mindedness and cultural acceptance and blah blah, and it doesn't apply. Not only does it not apply to this class of white people, but it's like turned on its head. It's like the hatred and vitriol that comes forward. It's more than anything I've ever expressed about black people or even Latinos, because the way I see it, like black people are they are what they are. Like we accept them for what they are. I've never actually
just don't want to be around them. That's like it's as far as it goes.
Like this level of hatred it's not something I can actually relate to, even though, given the name of our podcast and everything we talk about.
Well, the name of our podcast is a play on the fact that they say everything ends in another Shoah. I mean, that's why it's the Daily Show.
I mean, everybody gets that this is a gag. I would hope. I mean, except the people that don't, who I don't give a shit. But it's like, but yeah. I don't know. Anyway, I don't know where that's going. I'm just throwing that out there.
It's going to another Shoah. That's where it always goes.
It's interesting when you encounter that sort of intense moral reaction.
Yeah.
That seems kind of disconnected from normal. I mean, it's not really normal for you to be so protective of this other ethnic group that's distinct from your own, that you have this automatic, not rationalized, but very automatic, instinctive moral reaction to any kind of criticism of them.
Well, the interesting thing is that this wasn't even a reaction to anybody criticizing blacks. This was a pure reaction.
Oh yeah, right.
To this kind of red.
But that sort of fits their template of who the other really is. I mean, that's what's interesting, is when the other is actually you. I mean, it's kind of a familiar thing of the other being, some other tribe, some other race, some other whatever, some other social class. I mean, those, because there are natural conflicts that come into play, competition for resources and so on. What's weird is when the other is actually, but I guess in this case it really is still a different class, at least.
It's definitely a different class, at least.
It's someone they think of as social intellectual lessers.
Oh yeah, and part of what I'm thinking is that sort of like, this kind of comes out of the discussion of the status that comes with managing the Holocaust Museum and other things. It's sort of like, okay, so on some level, like the activism and this individual is also involved in activism on behalf of black people, right? I mean, you probably could guess this, right? So that in a way is part of sort of cementing herself as a high status female. Right, in the social hierarchy, like she's a high status female, so she does things like activism on behalf of blacks or so-called oppressed minorities. She thinks all the right things. She reads Ta-Nehisi Coates, all that stuff, right? So, but in a way, when given a socially acceptable outlet for hatred and vitriol, goes full force, right? So it's like I have a hard time believing that this person isn't bigoted, doesn't have these negative feelings towards outgroups that is so that they castigate others for, because when given an acceptable outgroup, they go full force, like full on.
Well, and you pinpointed really the interesting thing about it, the fascinating thing about it, which is that it's so vehement and there's such a level of vitriol. And here we are, we're all pretty much confessed racists. I mean, we're all an anti-Semite, whatever. Yeah. And yet I'll bet we could all have a normal conversation with a Jew or a black or whatever, and not feel like this fucking asshole must die or whatever. I mean, and I think, and really, probably they could too. You know, if they actually confronted one of these people, I wonder if, you know, if their reaction would be very tempered, or maybe they would just be very shut down about it. I don't know, but there is something about that vehemence that I think we talked about this on the forum once, especially in regard to homosexuality and the fact that the whole gay marriage thing was always kind of a stalking horse for just humiliating Christians. It was never about, because we know that gay men don't want to marry. I mean, a tiny percentage of them want to marry, and their definition of marriage is we can still go and get fucked at the glory hole. I mean, it's a totally bogus issue affecting a tiny fraction of the population. But it has to be rubbed in your face, because this is not really about gay marriage. This is about a kind of sadistic domination.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's about humiliating some Christian bakery, because apparently the most important thing about gay marriage is getting the fucking cake, because I've never heard anyone be more outraged than they are about whether or not some bakery will make a cake with two men fucking on it. Right. So that's really the key to the issue. It is a kind of weird sadism, and I think that arises out of this kind of urban environment and atomization and a sort of paranoia that develops. And that's why there's that weird vehemence against some fucking people hunting somewhere. Who gives a shit? I mean, this could not possibly have less of an effect on your life than anything. It's hard to think of something that has less of an effect on your life than someone 500 miles away shooting a deer.
What was even more interesting was it wasn't even just the hunt. It's like the thing that was mentioned was the
outfits. The outfits. And
yeah,
stuff,
like
the face they were in camo.
So it's sort of like it's the signifier. It's not even the action. Like it's like, oh, not only they go hunting, they put on face paint, and it's like, well, they're LARPing in the woods. What the fuck is your problem? Who cares?